Beloved, welcome back to episode 5 of Building a Tiny Log Cabin. We are going to be installing the power conduits today. In yesterday's episode, we installed the power meter base for the 400 amp service and the water meter. Our task at hand today is to get in the conduit for the underground utilities. Now, I sent my manservant Jariah up to Platt to pick up the sweeps and the conduit. While he's doing that, you and I are going to dig this. If we start with the 22, we can simulate what direction that we're going to end up. These stakes can be useful. And you can see there that there's going to be a little bend in the conduit, but that's a little bit extreme. It puts a lot of stress on the joints. So what I like to do in a situation like this would be to get a second one. Just keep these here, and then we can come in like this a little bit more in line with what we want. Are you ready for your cold start? Diesel Pro Hose, they like cold starts on diesels for some reason. I didn't know these diesel cold starts were a thing on YouTube till you guys started asking for them. Now you got me watching them. They're all over my For You page. Glow plugs are warm. It's about 51 degrees. This mini digger is the first Caterpillar piece of equipment that I've ever owned, and I spent almost 20 years in the excavating business, and I ran pretty much everything, but very few Cat. The guys I worked for either had Link Belt or Hitachi. But I'll tell you, after spending a year or so on it, I think it's my favorite. It is easiest to work on. The parts network is amazing. If you're going to buy construction equipment, there's a strong argument for buying Cat for sure. I would say that it's on top. This Cat has what is called an offset boom, meaning that it has a backhoe feature. If you look at this little toggle right here, if you toggle it, it swings the boom left and right without the whole house moving, the house being the whole portion I'm sitting in. Now, if we want to swing the whole house, we can do that as well. So you can see the difference on the swing. Offset boom on here versus the full swinging house. Now, why that matters is that a machine like this can get you in very tight, really tight spots where you can dig right alongside of a building. Looks like we have a little artifact there. What is that? Sometimes you find good things. All the years I spent excavating, I did find some oddball things. Some of the strangest things that I came across was back in the day when people were really poor and they needed a septic system. They couldn't afford to build or buy a septic tank. They would dig a big hole. They would take an old junked out car. They would put it in the hole, break one of the windows, and just stick a pipe in the hole and bury the whole thing. I've seen that. This here is Windermere Brothers Brewing. That's not very old. Gotta get my grounding in for the day here. Plus the tactical clog doesn't do well working in trenches. This is a 12-inch trench. You got to determine bucket width. There's pros and cons. I have a 12-inch bucket and a 48-inch bucket. That's what came with my machine. And the 12-inch trench is nice in that when you have to backfill it, you have half as much material as a 24. But the downside is it's harder to work in. So what I do when I get into these roots like this, get a saw or a pair of loppers and just take a moment and cut these out, get them out of your way. And it's already hard enough to work inside of a 12-inch trench. Why fight these guys? You hear that humming sound? That's the wind blowing through the power lines, the harmonics it makes. I couldn't figure out where that humming was coming from. Pick out any big rocks in your trench. That can break your pipe when you backfill. And I'll hand dig next to the pole. I've got a ground rod right there. I didn't want to interfere. I should also mention this is a trenching shovel. You see how narrow it is. There's trenching shovels, and then your regular shovel that you're used to is made for more moving material, maybe gravel, dirt, bark dust. But you don't want to have to dig a wide trench by hand. You can get a trenching shovel, then you can dig one that's half the width and do really half the work. Now for the other end, we need to make a decision. Do we dig with the machine or do we hand dig that? And I think we can dig it with the machine. We put these posts in concrete yesterday, and some of you were asking why I didn't pour concrete all the way around it, why I only poured it on the back two sides. I wanted to leave this clear because I have to bring this conduit flush. I didn't want to have that concrete holding it out and having this coming in all crooked. So I did that intentionally. So I think if we're careful, we can use that offset boom and come right here real close, just stay a couple inches away, clean that out, the toe real carefully, and then finish it up by hand. Hey, love.
Hi.
What's going on?
Just want to come and see what's happening.
Well, I'm just finishing up the trenching and ready to put the conduits in.
Wow, how's it feel?
It's good to be out working in the sun. It's been a long winter.
It looks beautiful.
Yeah. Nice and clean.
Super clean.
This is going to be the cheapest power connection possible, he said.
Because it's so close.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Transformer's going to be on the pole. So, yeah, I like it. All right, beloved, I think we are ready for our conduits. Mr. Dry should be here any moment. Once we get those conduits installed, then I'll call the power company, and then the electricians will come out and set the panel and run the wire. And you can bet I'll be on them like white on rice. I'll make them clean up after themselves. I used to be a construction superintendent I used to build high-end retail stores. And those electricians are famous for leaving a mess. I don't know if this is true or not, but all the other trades would agree that they think that they're prima donnas and they think that their time is too valuable to clean up after themselves. They leave their little wire clippings all over the place and everyone else has to clean them up. So I always made a special point when I was a construction superintendent. I even made them come back and clean up their messes if they didn't do it the first time. So we'll be sure that we'll keep them on the straight and narrow. Good news, gentlemen, Mr. Jiraiya has arrived. This is the smallest conduit order I've ever done, but what we have here is we've got a 3-inch Schedule 40 gray conduit, heavy duty, thick stuff, direct bury, 36-inch sweeps. When you see sweeps like this, the reason why they're so big rather than just being, because this is a 90, a small 90, is that the friction of pulling wire through this for the power crews on long runs, that could be tremendous. So having those long sweeps eliminates that problem. Couplers, and then these are the 22.5s here. If you put them together, they make a 45. So I had Mr. Dry grab a hub spigot, one with a male female, and then a male male or spigot spigot. Put my shoes back on. There's a bunch of thorns in here. If you want to be kind to your power guys, put a coupler on there for them. It stands it off the pole so that they can, sometimes when you bury these, it'll push against the pole so tight that they can't hardly get on it. Now that I've had a chance to look at this, it looks more like a 45 than a 22.5. That's why you get the two. Costs a little bit more, but it gives you so many more options. Now this will run directly up into the left side of the meter panel, which is apparently quite big. My neighbor Dan just stopped by and I asked him about it because he's got one, a 400 amp service, and he's going to measure it and then text me where that is. So we can mark right here and then come in perfectly where that's supposed to be. He may have sent it already. Well, good news, gentlemen. My electrician is in town. He's going to drop the panel off and we can mount it and we can know exactly where it goes in so we can get it perfect. So in the meantime, let's go get ready for our gravel delivery. I'm going to give you a pro tip so that when you're building your own place, you look like you know what you're doing. Take a stake, either put a ribbon on it, paint it a color, and put this where you want your rock when you have that delivered. The dump truck drivers, it's a stressful job, it's hard. And if you can make their job a little bit easier on site, where they don't have to track you down and they can just be autonomous, put the stake in the ground. This is understood usually. This is rock. You can even write rock on it with a Sharpie. And grab the commander. I ordered my Tradcon out of the house into that chair over there by the river for 2 hours of quiet reading time. She works too hard. My manservant, Mr. Dryer, reminded me we should cap that. You can use an old, like a, I don't know, sour cream lid and some tape when we get done. Keep the water out of it. That's right. Good to see you.
Hey,
Thanks for coming out.
Yeah,
Boy, that
no
sure
worries.
worked out good for us. We were just putting the conduit in.
That should work.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'll just do one more crossbar and you're good with that?
I think so.
And I'm going to put a roof on it too.
Got it.
And then I was planning on putting a frost-free 4 inches off of here. Is that going to be an issue for you at all? No setback issues?
No.
Okay,
Never had one. I mean, it's outside anyway.
right. Good point. That's a good point.
Especially when the rain's going sideways, it's still gonna hit it.
Yeah, exactly.
See it and
Have you seen some of those commercial runs? I watched some TikTok videos of some of those. They're incredible.
Oh yeah.
They're
yeah.
incredible. And those guys bend by hand.
Yeah.
Amazing. Now, if you could get them to clean up after themselves. You know, and I'll be watching you too, you know. I'll put you on YouTube here if you don't clean. I used to be a construction superintendent for commercial, and I was always on the electricians. They had a bad reputation, the union guys. They'd like just leave everything on the ground. And it's like, oh, it's not us. We're too important. Our time is too important to be cleaning up wire clippings.
Oh no, that's why I get on my guys. I'm like, God, you gotta clean. You wouldn't believe how much not callbacks that people would call you back to do work just because you cleaned up your mess.
Oh yeah.
That was the only reason.
Yeah, because you're like 1 in 1,000 that does that.
Yeah, exactly.
My electrician is a great dude. This is it. These things are as rare as hen's teeth, hard to come by. 400 amp power service. This is much bigger than I was expecting, so this changes things a bit. Let me show you what we're gonna have to do to accommodate this. When I built this, I wasn't quite sure of the panel size and I completely underestimated, so I anticipated this. I actually I had another one already ripped. So what we'll do is that now I'll let in another one. So that'll be pretty big. That's a 30-inch panel. So yeah, right in there a little bit. So we'll do one more here, probably equal spacing, and then we'll have 4 mounting points. And then the sub panel will go right there for the RV hookup. All right, gentlemen, did you hit that thumbs up? Take a moment and do that. We sure do appreciate it. That's gonna be it for today. We'll pick up tomorrow where we left off, and instead of doing the conduit, we're gonna most likely do that final crossbar. We'll let that in, and then we'll get our, maybe even get our hydrant installed. I was gonna mount that panel. I was thinking that I would just stick it up there and then run the conduit out. That way we would have it perfect. And the electrician reminded me that that's his job to do that and that we could get in trouble by doing that. And I'm like, oh yeah, of course. So he's gonna come out on Friday and I'll have that crossbar in, and then his guys will throw that on there. Then we can run that conduit and everything will be super, super skookum. May God bless you and your families. Please keep us in your prayers, and we'll see you all on the next video.